Thank you for tuning in, everybody. This is the I Like Birds show. I'm your host, Zach Rippey. This is the first ever episode in the live studio with multi-cams. We got Taylor back behind the boards. Taylor, say hello to the people.
What up?
And we got Mr. Dustin Watts, my pastor, my friend, my spiritual counsel in front of me. Dustin, say hello to the people.
Hello, friends.
Yeah, we got cameras. Which one do we look at? And we don't even know. We're just going to look at each other. Whatever one we want. All right, there we go.
I looked at that one.
I like it.
It's looking at me.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody tuning into this one. We know we're going to have some awesome video footage from it, which I feel like a lot of people, it's 1 o'clock in the middle of a Thursday. So a lot of people got stuff going on, but I'm excited for the video footage of this one. It's going to be a beautiful display. Dustin, you dressed up in your usual, you got to stay on character. Right. And super appreciate you being here, man. You're like one of my go-to guys for everything I feel like in life. We have great conversations. I even talk about you in my book, 21 Days in Africa, quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to really, for the first one, bring you in because you're number one, my go-to guy here. And I wanted also people to really just put a face to a name that they see. Yeah. And we're going to talk a little bit about the stuff that you do in life with your career and the way you help people and the way you're a pastor and the way you lead people in ways that benefit them financially, mentally, and spiritually. So my first question I got to ask you right off the bat, because this is something that I feel like is just going to benefit people so much so, and just want to hear a little bit more about your story. Yeah. So what has being a pastor taught you about personal finance, and what has a personal finance advisor taught you about being a pastor?
Ooh. So that's a deep question. That's multifaceted. So
that's what we do here, baby.
I'm going to give you a little bit of my background, a little bit of my story, and kind of I got to give you some context into who I am to be able to answer that question.
Who are you, Dustin?
So my name is Dustin Watts. I'm not going to tell you my middle name. It's Rozier, Roshier.
Not going to tell you, but it's Rozier.
It's a cool family name. In fact, I didn't really know it was my grandfather's name until he passed away and I saw his death certificate. I always knew him as Bill. Mm-hmm. His name was Bill. His actual name was Rozier, but he went by Bill. So anyway, Rozier is a cool family name. So Dustin Rozier Watts. I have an amazing wife. Her name is Catherine. She's children's pastor at our church. She's gorgeous. She's absolutely amazing. And then I have 3 daughters, 13, 10, and an almost 2-year-old. So we had a little bit of a gap there. Mm-hmm. And everybody asked, was it a surprise? No, we planned it. I thought we were done, but God said no. Mm-hmm. We're not done yet. So the reason I bring all that up and kind of give the family backstory is because it's really interesting talking about, pastor and personal finance. So I was raised in church. My dad's a pastor. I love church. I'm what you would call like, I even when I'm not at church or in church, I'm looking at other churches, what they're doing, listening to other sermons, all that kind of stuff. And I've been that way since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I was raised in church. That's what we do. So church was a part of my life. God obviously was a part of my life. He wasn't really the main key of my life, to be honest. When I was younger, it was very focused on, church and the idea of church, not necessarily being a Christian, being a believer, being a Christ follower or disciple, right? Because it was the culture that I was a part of. And so being a pastor was like my ultimate dream. Like some people grow up and they want to play, they want to play, left field for the Texas Rangers and hit a grand slam in the World Series, right? Or they want to grow up and be president or something like that. Like me, I was like, I'm going to be a pastor, and that was what I wanted to do. And so my dad, props and credits to my dad. My dad kind of raised me to be a pastor. Like I was reading John Maxwell at like 12 years old.
Really?
So yeah, I mean, the 12 Indisputable Laws of Leadership. I mean, like that's a part of part of my vernacular, it's part of who I am because I read it when I was young. And so I've been raised to be a pastor and got into the ministry really kind of at age 16. I was a student pastor at age 16. I had kids who were seniors in high school that were a part of my student ministry. And, it's kind of weird being a 16-year-old student pastor, but God gave us grace and we did some cool things. Well, as that happened, I kind of transitioned and got a promotion from student ministry to children's ministry. I became a children's pastor and did that for a few years. And one of the things I learned specifically from kind of being student pastor to children's pastor now to my role in adult ministry, from all the way from being a kid, pursuing ministry, and that's what I want to do. I want to be a pastor all the way up to today, is that a lot of people view being a pastor and a lot of people view ministry as like standing up on a pulpit at a pulpit and preaching.
Absolutely. That's exactly what they think of.
Right. Because that's as
all
a,
we know is
as a member of a church,
Yeah.
that's what I see a lot of times from the pastor.
Right.
So I thought that was ministry. Man, I started working on my craft as a preacher, and I was like, man, I'm going to be the best communicator out there, and I'm going to preach and preach and preach and preach. And I really wasn't that good early on.
Yeah.
Like most of us, we all learn at the things we're working on. But one of the things that I kind of began to learn and understand and realize was that ministry is not about being behind a pulpit. True ministry is being with the people, spending time with people. John Maxwell, referencing him a second time, John Maxwell says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right. So I can get up from behind a pulpit and preach this amazing sermon, and it's viewed through a filter.
Right.
It's viewed through a lens.
Absolutely.
Right. And so being able to kind of break down that lens as early as I can by having a relationship with someone is very important. Right. And so you talked about, how does my ministry connect with my role in finance and personal finance and kind of what I do with personal finance. Well, being in ministry, there's an emphasis on spending time with people and loving people. Right. That's the role of ministry. That's what a pastor is. If you look, Jesus' definition of a pastor is a shepherd.
Yep.
Right. We're taking care of the sheep. Well, Jesus loved his sheep. He gives the parable. He loves those sheep so much that he was willing to leave the 99 to go get the one.
Right.
Why? I would assume because he knew who that one sheep was. It wasn't just a sheep out in the flock. He knew that one sheep. He had a relationship with that one sheep. Right. And so for me, from a personal finance side and the guidance that I offer from a personal finance side, for me, it's not me up, kind of banging your drum. Hey, you got to do this, to have, great personal finances. You got to do this to experience financial freedom. It's taking the time to sit down with someone and unpack what's going on in their world.
Yep.
Right. From not just a finance, but personal, professional, financial, unpack what's going on in their world, and then spend the time to guide them, to build a plan tailored specifically for them and guide them. Well, that happens in the financial world. That also happens in the ministry world. Right.
Elaborate on that one.
Like for you and I, when we first met, when we first started hanging out, spending time together, I loved hearing your story. Like I was so fascinated with your story. Well, I wasn't just fascinated with your story because, for whatever reason, I was fascinated with your story because I genuinely care about you. I want to know about you. I want to know about your past, know about your world, know about what's going on. Well, then you began to unpack, hey, these are my goals. These are my ambitions. These are my dreams. These are the things I want to accomplish. Well, not that I'm like some super brilliant, intelligent guy or whatever, but, I'd kind of seen in my experience in ministry, kind of seen similar situations where you're growing in your walk with God and you're feeling the call to ministry. And I was able to kind of use my experience or my knowledge to kind of lay out some ideas and some concepts for you. Hey, if we attack this and this way, this will put you in a position to be able to do this. Right. And then what's most important is, on the financial side, I build out that plan and spend that time developing that plan. But I don't just here's your plan, go have fun, good luck.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's follow-up, there's consistent conversation. Why? Because I genuinely care.
Right.
And that's what being a pastor shepherd is. A pastor shepherd is genuinely caring for people and loving people. And so that when the opportunity comes to be able to give encouragement or to give guidance or to give direction, there's a perspective of, well, he's not just doing this, to make a buck, or he's not just doing this because he's supposed to as the pastor. Nah, he's spent time with me. He knows my situation. He cares about me. So the things he's telling me, I'm gonna. They have a little more weight.
Absolutely,
carry a little more weight.
Yeah, and I love that answer because I've lived through that with you throughout the time, and I can speak to people listening right now that that's exactly who you are. It's the sitting down and opening the door of your knowledge of ministry, and you laid it out all in front of me. You're like, well, you could go this path or this path. There's pros and cons to each path. Speaking as far as, do you want to go to a mega church? You have to go through seminary. You have to do this. You want to go to a non-denominational church. You just want to kind of get more of a biblical foundation. I recommend Destiny Leaders Institute. You open that door for me right then and there.
Yeah.
You've you have ties there as well. So you were able to really facilitate just all that went into it. Calvary ended up sponsoring me to go through it. And then from there, it was just we kept building that relationship through the ministry. And then along the way, you were like, yo, if you ever need anything, financial advisor, help or anything like that, let me know. And at the time, I didn't have two nickels to rub together to be able to even come to you. I was just like, bro, like you're barking up the wrong tree, brother. Like I'm a waiter at Bar Taco and I do stand-up comedy sometimes, So and the world just shut down, I think, around that time too. I was like, so I don't do any of those things anymore. Like I got Biden money, I got the government checks coming through, but and that actually was definitely helpful, of course. But at the time it was just cool because I feel like it just kind of happened naturally. And I feel like for you, it's been really cool to see, you build those relationships with people, and it's almost like you don't have to knock on people's doors; they come to you just based on y'all's relationship. So I think that's so cool that you're able to offer that, and that's why I even recommended my best friend Mikey, come and talk to you, and you guys have great rapport and relationship already.
Yeah.
And it's awesome that you customize your and that's so true. You're always there for people like throughout the entire process, and I think that speaks very highly of your personal financial advisory and your ministry blending together.
Yeah. I think that, a lot of times what happens, a lot of relationships in life are very transactional, right? You meet someone, you have a conversation with them, and then it kind of shuts off and it's done. Whether it's, sometimes it can be a pastor or a ministry leader or somebody that you're involved with at the church where you have some kind of interaction with them, have an interaction that, but then it feels very transactional because it never continues, right? There's never a follow up. There's never a relationship building aspect. And one of the things that I try to do best I can, I mean, I think I don't think we can do it for everybody that we come in contact with, but one of the things I really genuinely try to do is to continue to build relationship. And I think there's the Holy Spirit that leads us and guides us and kind of gives us some direction in whether, this is, hey, this is going to be a tight long-term relationship, or this is going to kind of be an acquaintance. But at the same time, I don't want people to feel transactional about my interaction with them.
Right.
I don't want them to feel like, hey, we had this one interaction, I got some information from him, or we had this one interaction and he gave me, told me where to go on the church campus to get to this specific room, and then I never hear from him again. Right. I want to be able to do my best to remember their name, and to, when they come back in again, whether it's at church or I meet with them a second time, from a financial perspective, I want to be able to do my best to remember and let them know that I cared enough to not let it be transactional,
Right.
but to let it be truly relational and truly build that relationship. I mean, if you think about it, that's what Jesus is calling us to do, in all of our, no matter what career field you're in, no matter, where you're flipping burgers or McDonald's, or, you're a C-level exec at a Fortune 500 company.
Right.
The whole goal is not to be transactional. Is to have relationships with people, because life change happens in the context of relationships. And whether that's for us or life change for them, for the people that we're interacting with.
That's so good, and it shows the power of building relationship is discipleship. And then also, I love that you're a you counsel people well. You counsel me through ministry, through life, through experiences. Actually, you were one of the first people, before you even knew I was writing a book, suggested I write a book, go along with the podcast, send it off to people, and potentially getting speaking opportunities. So it was cool because while I was writing this, I was going through a difficult season financially, and you were just there for me, like through all that, and encouraging in all regards of that. And it's cool because that counseling goes so far. And I feel like I wouldn't have never considered having a financial advisor if it wasn't for that counsel that you bring to the table, but also showing that like you truly care. So because I'm a DIYer for sure, but at the same time, it's like you can never deny good counsel. And when you have the financial freedom and financial peace, you're able to focus so much more on the other things that you truly care about and that you're passionate about, and opens up doors for opportunities. And have you experienced that with your clients, like over a longevity period of time?
Yeah, for sure. I think, I think when the idea of counsel, there's sometimes there's unwanted advice. And I think a lot of people, when somebody comes to you and is like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Like everybody's like, word vomit. Let's get as many words out as we can and like tell them everything and lay it all out there. Right. But the problem is, there's a lot of times it's analysis, it's paralysis by analysis, right? There's so much information that it's like, so trying to be able to, I had a mentor in my life one time. Two things he told me when I first started, preaching and communicating publicly, and he heard me preach and communicate. And shout out to Bishop Ron if he listens. But he told me, he said two things. Number one, you need to slow down. I said, what do you mean you slow down? He said, you talk way too fast. All right. And I do.
You and me both,
I
bro.
do.
This is for the listeners that are cool with it, though.
Right. Well, here's the deal. You know what? The faster you listen, the better you retain the knowledge. So we're trying to help you, like, listen faster. Right.
Exactly.
Well, he said, number one, you need to slow down. He said, number two, you need to put the cookies on the bottom shelf. And I was like, all right,
especially for men.
I like cookies. Let's do cookies, right? Chocolate chip. I'm in. I'm happy. What he was saying is sometimes you've got to simplify things. Like one of the most challenging things that we do in ministry, and it's true in the financial world as well, is you take very complex topics, right? Very complex topics like the market. Who understands the market? Nobody really understands the market.
Nobody.
And who understands, theology? Like we have obviously people with degrees in theology, and we have pastors that preach. But man, the Bible even says, hey, there's some mysteries you're not going to understand.
Yeah, God is a mystery for sure.
There's some things you're not going to get until you get into heaven, right? But we take these very complex, almost mysterious topics, and in ministry specifically, we find a way to take that and break it down and communicate it in bite-sized chunks where people can receive it, right? And comprehend it and understand it and then apply it.
Right.
If I try to tell one of my daughters, hey, you've got to do this, and this. I give them a list of 5 things to do right on top of each. Well, they're going to forget.
Right. For sure.
Unless they write it down, which we're working on that, but most likely they're going to forget. But if we give them 1 or 2 things to focus on at a specific time, then they're able to embrace that and focus on it and work on it, and develop it. And so, you mentioned counsel and all that kind of stuff. And I think one of the things that's important is being able to communicate and break down things in a way that can be received. That way, one of my prayers that I pray anytime I speak, and a lot of times I even do this with my financial planning meetings, I pray that ears would be open to hear what's being spoken. Mind would be ready and prepared to comprehend, to understand what's being spoken, and then a heart would be ready to receive. Because once it gets into a heart, then it comes out in our actions and it comes out in our deeds. And so when kind of navigating through all that, that's one of the things I pray, and that's one of the things that I want to be able to communicate things in ways as a communicator to where it is simplified enough for all those 3 things to take place. So shortened answer to your question. I have seen it. I have seen that sustainability, and I think it's because I'm a simple thinker sometimes. So I try to put things into terms that people understand based on kind of what I understand.
Yeah, and another thing you do great that I've noticed is you really connect people well, and that's a true beauty. Like I've learned from you how to connect people. Even if something so simple as like you'll have somebody in mind that helps. I think it was like we were struggling to get a loan for the house at the time, and I just remember you just being like, "Oh, I got a few people I can connect you with," and then next thing you know, I'm in a group chat with you and this person. You're connecting us, and then boom, you kind of like hands off, like, "All right," but you extend the offer to be in the group chat. Now I do that. If somebody needs something, I'm like, "Oh, I'll put you in a group chat with them. We'll figure it out." Yeah. And I think that just goes such a long way because then it's like that person receiving that message is like, I don't want to let Dustin down, like. But if that person just reached out, it could have been like, buried in a text or something like that or an email. But the fact that you bring them together and it's like a uniting thing, I think that's so helpful and it's so beneficial. And you don't ever come off as a guy that networks. I don't even like that word because it's transactional. It's very like take from you, give to you on all that. You're more so like, let's help each other out as like a community aspect. And I don't know if I think you know this, but my wife and my wife's family are trying to do like a homestead right now. We're trying to have them all move out to the land and, do some things in community, very centric, and helping each other out. We're building relationships with farmers, all this like little nitty gritty stuff that goes on in that world. And we're very early into it, but still that power and that value of having a community is so important. I feel like you've built that in Burleson.
Yeah. I feel called to Burleson. Catherine and I, we've talked about that quite a bit. My wife, Catherine, both of our wives are named Catherine. So my Catherine, we've talked about that quite a bit. Kind of finding our home. We found our home in Burleson, and we love Burleson. We love the community. And then now that we're a part of this community, we want to, this can sound very shallow at times, and I hope it doesn't come across that way because I don't mean it to be shallow. We want to be influencers in the community. and not influencers for our gratification or for us to look good or for us to be known.
Jesus influencers.
There you go.
Yeah.
We want to be known in the community so that we can be an influence for Jesus Christ,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
And you know,
Amen.
that was part of my transition into to the financial services industry, you know, and also still being able to be a part of ministry, be in ministry. And I love what I do as a pastor at Calvary Church, but also be able to play a role in kind of helping people in the day to day, you know,
Mhm.
the day to day of their lives on the financial side. Because, you know, my family, we read a proverb every morning. We read a chapter of Proverbs every morning, and I love it. It's so much fun. In fact, we talked about it earlier today. I love Proverbs so consistently and so regularly talks about your motives and your intentions,
Mm.
right? Why you're doing things. In fact, I think the proverb for today, Proverbs 20, was something along the lines of the light shines on the intentions. The light will shine. God's light will shine on your intentions and kind of reveal
Mhm.
what's going on. And I think that building a community and building a network of people, if it is transactional, the motives come out. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
If I'm building a network just so I can, you know, build my client base, or if I'm building a network just so I can, you know, I can, you know, do something for me,
Right.
self gratification or something to gratify me and help
Mhm.
me look better or feel better. I think people sense that,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. It's ingenuine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And so I think if the intentions are right and the heart is right behind what you're trying to accomplish, then I think God honors it, number
Yeah.
one. And number two, I think people sense it, you know?
Absolutely.
People get it. And so for me, you know, the networking aspect of kind of what I do, you know, I know God's going to honor what I do. I know God's going to bless what I do. We've received and seen that blessing
Mhm.
of God on our lives. And so, if I can make a difference in someone's life, and that's a big part of what I do, is I want to make a difference in people's lives. If I can make a difference in people's lives, that's what I want to accomplish,
Right.
you know. And I think people sense that and feel that. And so, networking, I mean, it is a, you know, for lack of a better term, networking. I do want it to be relational. I
Right.
do want it to be, you know, I mean, sure, if somebody returns something to me, great, but I'm not going into that relationship trying to get something in return from
Right.
them. I'm going in with the true intention of helping make a difference in someone's life.
And that truly separates you from, I don't really know that many financial advisors, but
Yeah.
I'm not in that golf club, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I'm not in that realm of company, but I don't really know, you know, but I think that does separate you. And this is something that I talked about in the last episode that I did, because it's really God has put it on my heart. In my subtitle, I have ministering to the one in front of you in the book, 21 Days in Africa.
Yeah.
Go pick it up if you haven't, if you're listening. It's on Amazon for $10.
It's worth it. It's worth it. I promise.
There you go. I appreciate that, Dustin. But ministering to the one in front of you, I started thinking, because that was like the whole, like the main, you know, thing that I pulled away from Africa. It was really, there was just this long list of needs of people there that just felt like you were just constantly adding something else to the list. And it could be very overwhelming at times, you know? So I asked my mother-in-law, I was like, hey, how do you like deal with this? Cause it's like, it's on her, you know, essentially.
Yeah.
And the pastor there named David. And she says, it's just the one in front of you. It's just the one thing that's the need that's in front of you right then and there. It's like you help that one, and then hopefully they help others, and it spreads, and it kind of just grows the gospel from there, right? And so I started thinking about that. You know, the book is out now, and I'm on the other side of it now. And I started thinking, like, how can I minister to the one in front of me still away from Africa? You know, and I started really leaning into like what I feel I've accomplished through God and through like the ministry. And a lot of it is, you know, creating an opportunity for other people to feel special, another to encourage people in their passions and their pursuits and what they got going on, because there's so many people that lack self-doubt, or that have self-doubt and lack self-confidence.
Yeah.
And I want to like build people up and minister to them in a way that encourages them to take the leap of faith, because on the other side, it's like the fruit is there, and the blessings are there, and God's going to guide you through that if you trust in him to get to that other side of whatever passion it is that you have.
Amen. Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that you do very well as well, because you're like, you don't need me to, you know, join as a client for financial advisor. You want me to succeed regardless of what I'm doing in life. And I feel like that goes a long way with people.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And it kind of goes back, you know, I tell people, you know, ministering to the one in front of you, I think is, I want to hone in on that because I think that's important. So a lot of people ask me, you know, I it's kind of funny. I think it's funny, at least, you know, I get asked, you know, everybody asks, how you doing today, man? Oh, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When really they're not.
Right.
Like, it's been a horrible day, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's a write-off. I like that. It's like, I don't really want to dive into it. You don't want to hear what I have to say. So we're just moving on. Yeah. I'm good.
Keep it casual.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah. But one of the things that I say is I'm taking it one day at a time. And like people don't really know what that means, but it means a lot to me, right?
Right.
Because there's things going on in life that if you if you zoom out and look at the big picture, you're like, oh man, this is horrible. Like my life is going down the drain. This is going to be horrible, and you get overwhelmed.
Yeah, for
right.
Sure.
And so my thing, I'm one day at a time. You know what? I'm tackling today, and I'm going to do my best to make today the best day that I got.
That's
right?
so good. Yeah.
The best I can. Well, I think the same is true when ministering to the one in front of you. It's ministering to one person at a time, right? I think that if we look at the big picture from a ministry standpoint, there's so many people that need God. There's so many people that are struggling with addictions, that are struggling with self-image views, that are struggling with doubt and fear and anxiety and stress and depression. I mean, it's everywhere, right? Even in our families, like we deal with it with people that we're closest to. And if we look at it all from a big picture, it can become very overwhelming. God, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? How do I do this? Like, is my contribution even worth it? Because there's so much, so much hurt and chaos and sin in the world. But the reality is, ministering to the person in front of you one day at a time, one person at a time, who's sitting in front of you, how can you be a blessing and minister to them? And then what I find is, we preach at Calvary, and it's pretty prevalent kind of in the church world. There's a journey to fulfillment in your life, right? And that journey of fulfillment is knowing God, having a relationship with God, finding freedom, getting free from the things of your past, the sins, the weights, the things that are holding you down. We want freedom from those. But then there's two more pieces of the puzzle, and that is discovering your purpose. Why was I created? God created you on purpose, for a purpose. What is that purpose? And then making a difference with that purpose, right? Once we kind of begin to experience those four things in our life, those four promises from God essentially for us, once we begin experiencing those in our life, well, then we start to live a life of fulfillment. And it's the life that God wants for us to live, right? I'm so much more of a testimony for him and an example for him when I'm living a fulfilled life versus when I'm not.
Right.
Because when I'm not living a fulfilled life, I'm walking around with, frown on my face, and I'm grumpy and I'm upset and I'm yelling at my kids and, honking the horn.
Oh, you too?
Oh yeah, me too. I love my kids, but yeah, every now and then. One of my biggest struggles, I'm being a little vulnerable with you guys. One of my biggest struggles is the road, like driving on the road. Here in Burleson, we have an exit ramp, and there's a yield there, and people never yield there. And I'm like, you got to yield. So I can, if I'm not finding fulfillment, I'll lose it right there. That exit
it's all
ramp, right?
It's all there. That's the test for you to see if you're walking with God
That's
correctly.
Right. Yeah, that's right. But if I'm living a fulfilled life, then I'm a much better example for Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
I'm a much better testimony for Jesus Christ if I'm living the fulfilled life. Well, if you go back to the know God, find freedom, discover purpose, make a difference. Well, discovering my purpose and making a difference, those are really important pieces of the puzzle to experiencing that. And so if I'm ministering to the person in front of me, I get fulfillment from that. I thoroughly enjoy that.
Right.
One of my gifts is teaching. One of my spiritual gifts is teaching. I love teaching. And so when I can sit down and going back to the counsel, provide counsel to someone, well, that's me understanding my purpose and making a difference within my purpose and ministering to the person in front of me. I'm using my gifts, the gifts that God has given me, to make a difference in the community. And I think that I think it's important for us to understand what our purpose is and how we can make a difference in the community. And a lot of times we think, well, especially for ministers and people pursuing ministry, it's going to be on a stage. A lot of times it's ministering to the person in front of you. I think I think you're spot on with like the focus of like one person at a time. Let's minister to one person at a time.
Yeah. And it's so cool that was like one of the big takeaways from just the experience. It's one thing, like I've always wanted to write a book, and I thought the first book I would write was going to be more of kind of like a memoir, kind of like biography, but then I started thinking like, nobody, like there'll be a few people that care,
Right,
but like having an experience and then kind of talking about the faith journey through that experience was like exactly what I feel like God had called me to do, to write the first one, and the second one, we'll see what happens. But to the fact that like that experience is so cool to have the book, but now that I have like the experience on the other side of it, it was almost like I was like trapped in like the writer kind of focus and like being so like consumed by it every single like week of my life, editing it and just being immersed in it, that now that I'm off, now it's out, I feel like this kind of like, whoa, I can look back and be like, that experience was so bizarre, that was so crazy, that was so like, it taught me so much more about ministry than I could have ever learned by doing the podcast and being at church or whatever. It was such a deeper insight. And it was only one mission trip, but that one mission trip was a life-changing experience that I
Yeah.
can take away. And like you said, you feel fulfillment. I was, I got a buddy that's, leaning into video editing, and he just downloaded Adobe, and he's like he's going in with it, and I just builded him. I was so hyping and encouraging with him, and I started feeling joy just by, hyping him up.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law is like thinking about doing, playing music at like local venues and stuff like that. And I'm over here like giving ideas out, like, hey, you should do, I used to know this venue. And I'm over here just like, so pumped because he's actually going to he's going to pursue his passion.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. And I want to help other people do that based on, I don't want to say like my success from doing that, but I've done a lot of different things that are passion related and found a way to like, reap, financial benefits from it, or get fulfilled while doing it, and having, that freedom to be like, oh, I do this. And like, yeah, I'm cool with, doing that, and not, taking the chance, essentially taking the leap of faith. I want to help other people take the leap of faith.
Yeah.
And that's what the ministry looks like for me right now.
Yeah. I think that's important. I think a lot of people get stuck a little bit in, in a rut.
Yeah.
And like, we have ideas.
Mhm.
I have someone that I'm, been spending some time with. I had lunch with him a couple weeks ago, and man, heart, attitude, demeanor, everything, such a winner, like a winner from an individual standpoint. Love spending time with him, love being around him, and has ideas. I think I can do this, and I kind of feel called to do this, and I want to do this. And like, man, go do it. Go do it. Pursue it. Do it. I think a lot of people hear, the scripture, God gives me the desires of my heart, and thinks, oh, cool. God's going to give me the car that I want. God's going to give me a Tesla.
That ain't it.
God's going to hook me up, right? that was for you, Taylor.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jack, coming your way. All right. But God's going to give us the desires of our heart, right? Well, I think we kind of missed that a little bit. And if you read it from a different perspective, I think it's kind of like the idea that the desires that I have in my heart come from God, right? The things that I want to do are God inspired, and a lot of people get, spiritual gifts, or spiritual gifts and natural abilities kind of confused a little bit, right? Natural abilities are talents and passions and things that God has given us that we pursue to help us personally, kind of help us in our day-to-day walk and in our life. Now, God can take our natural abilities. Like I play music. I enjoy playing music. Well, as a musician, that's a talent. That's a kind of a passion that I think God placed in my heart. And for a season of my life, I played music in church every Sunday, right? And it got used as a spiritual gift. Yeah, man, it's been a few minutes, but God used that used the spiritual gift of work, used my natural ability, and redeemed it for the spiritual gift of worship. And I think there are passions and desires in each of us that God has placed there, and they just kind of lay dormant.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then once we kind of, okay, I have these dreams, I have these desires, I have these passions, like my buddy I was talking about, I was like, man, go pursue them. God's going to open doors. If that's what you feel, if that's what God has laid on your heart, go do them. And doors are going to start opening for you,
Yes,
especially
bro.
if it's God inspired. I mean, you're a testimony of that. Like all the cool things that have happened for you over the past couple of years, those doors will start opening. And then what you find that the passions and the desires that you have, God starts redeeming them and using them, and to better His kingdom.
Absolutely. And you never know who you're going to reach through your passions. Like I started this, and I swear, I thought if 4 people listened, I'd be happy. Yeah, I swear. I was like, 4? Like, want to hear what I got to say about Jesus? All right, cool.
Yeah.
And then now fast forward, we're like, we're so far in the game that I've seen the fruit from it, from people just really receiving, God. Because I feel like we present God in a way that they won't hear on Sundays. We present God in a way where it's deep and relational. And that's the thing. It's just very intimate. It's taking what happens with God personally and making it public for people to, experience, and having great conversations with other people who are believers that have walked a different path, but are on the same walk with God, and it just opens doors for other people to, you're ministering to the one listening, at all times. I posted a clip yesterday on my Instagram of the newest episode, and I was like, man, it got 1 like. And I was like, we do it for the one though,
Right?
baby. You know, like I got
Ministering the
hyped,
one in front of
you know, and like
Yeah.
if you switch your perspective of like, oh, I'm gonna start playing music, but I'm afraid because nobody's gonna like it, or oh, I'm not gonna get a whole bunch of views or subscribers if I start a YouTube about, you know, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's like, bro, if you reach one person, you're making a true difference, you know.
Yeah.
And that I feel like that mentality will save you, because
Mhm.
at the same time, it's like it's so easy to get lost in the sauce of like, you know, discouragement and like haters or whatever the case may be. But if you really focus on like, yo, one person listen to that though, like that was my art, that was my passion. I put everything into that one thing that I did, and one person liked it, you know. And then if you get 10 views, you're like, hey, 10x baby,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
20x,
yeah.
you get 20 views, you know. So Russ, one of my favorite artists in the world, everybody that listens to the show probably knows about now, he says that if you detach yourself from results, you win, because you know that's what holds you back, is when you put like a false expectation of what should happen.
Yeah, I may be about to take us down a path that, you know, who knows if
Let's
you
do it.
feel free to
You
pull it
know
back
me.
if we need to, right? But you know, you think about it. I love studying culture. I love looking at culture, because I think, you know, especially for us as Christians, as believers, culture is all around us, right? We have our kind of, as Christians, a lot of times you'll find yourself, depending on the church you're in or environment or whatever, kind of its own culture. But the big picture culture is all around us, and that's part of our responsibility. We live in the world, but we're not of the world, right? And we're supposed to be a light in the darkness, all those kind of things. And so I enjoy studying, kind of looking at culture and studying culture. And one of the things I've noticed about culture, especially today's culture, is going back to what you said. You know, you got one like, you got one view, you know, you got one listen, you know, whatever it may be. Well, and you said detaching yourself from the results. Social media, YouTube, you know, this kind of technological world that we live in, I feel like has created such a results oriented and driven mindset and culture, even for our kids and teens.
Yep.
Right. It's not just, you know, for the guys who are listening out there who are in the sales world and out there making sales, you know, or medical sales, or, you know, roof sales or whatever it may be. Right. Well, you're analyzing numbers and looking at it, it's competitive, and it's, you know, it's results driven. Right. Well, now that kind of mentality has permeated into students and teens, kids even, and they're not. I don't feel like they're emotionally and mentally equipped to be able to handle that. And so the perspective, the refreshing perspective of like, hey, you know, we're one viewed, and we're making a difference, right? That's important, especially for the church, for the believers to embrace and understand, and not get so focused on, hey, I made this post about my walk with God, and this revelation that God gave me, and man, it only got 2 posts or 2 likes. But then, you know, so and so posted their revelation, like 150 people liked it.
Right.
You know what I mean? We look at that, and because we're so results oriented and results driven, that we kind of miss out on the fact that that revelation was for you,
Right.
like that was for me.
Sure, you experienced it.
Yes, and it was something for me, but I wanted to share it with the world, and nobody else listened, you know, and nobody else paid attention. And so we get so focused on the results aspect of society and culture, especially with social media so prevalent there, that we miss out on really true relationship, you know, one-on-one relationship and one-on-one ministry. And so I think that's a struggle that we're kind of all
We're
facing.
still working through it, right? Yeah. We haven't figured it out yet. We're still learning. And to bring Russ back up, he has this quote that I want to share with you that's so good. I think you'll like it. He says, focus on the what, forget the when, and never forget the why.
Okay.
So like focus on what it is that like you're called to do.
Yeah.
Right. And don't put a timeline on the success or what's to come from it. It could take a decade. Would you still do it? Would you put in the work to still, you know, chase your dream and chase that passion?
Yeah.
And the why. Don't forget like why you started, why you do what you do. And I just love that quote, because it shows like it's all about just it's falling in love with the game, not the points.
Yeah.
You know, and I think your daughter plays soccer, and I'm sure you have to teach some things in that regard as well.
Yeah.
And I just think it's powerful.
I'm a Cowboys supporter. It hurts sometimes, but I'm a Cowboys supporter. All right. But I like Jason Garrett. I've always liked Jason Garrett. I like Jason Garrett from back when
He's in the booth now.
Yeah, he's in the booth now. I enjoy listening to him. I loved it even back when he was,
because he's a redhead
backing up Troy Aikman. That's right. That's redheads got to stick together, man. That's right. But even back when he was backing up Troy Aikman back in the day, when I used to watch him as a kid, right? I thought Jason Garrett was cool. Well, one of the messages, and obviously I wish for better results for him here with the Cowboys, but one of the things I truly, genuinely appreciated about what he said is trust the process. He was always talking about the process, right?
Yep.
Like he was always talking about the process. And then I go and look and like, Bill Belichick's talking about the process. We're going to trust the process. Go to Coach K, at Duke, he's trust the process, right? Like there's always a need. I shouldn't say there's always a need. I think a lot of times there's a desire to see the wins, to see the points right away.
Yeah.
We become Christians and we're so on fire for God, and we're like, man, we're going to go do this. We're going to go tackle the world. And then, we kind of fail in our own perspective of what we think we wanted to accomplish. When God's like, well, just trust the process. All right. I'll get you there.
Plant the seeds.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll get you there. Let's focus on the process. And if the process is right and the God inspired and submitted to God, well, then the process is going to put you where you want to be. I think I'm pretty sure I told you this. It's been a big part of my life kind of throughout the years, is that a calling always makes way for itself. Right. And so, you feel the call of God in your life to do a certain thing, and kind of go back to the passions and the desires in your ministry and all this kind of stuff. You feel this calling on your life. And a lot of times what we do is we start looking at the results, and we try to fast forward the process.
Yeah.
We try to fast forward to the results aspect of it. When in reality, we'll just take it one day at a time, spend some time with God, work on it one day at a time, work on, what we're work on what God is leading us to do one day at a time. Then we'll look up, however many years down the road, and realize, wow, that was an amazing process. And I wasn't so focused on the results that I actually enjoyed the process.
Right.
I enjoyed the learning and the stretching and the growing and the hurting and the, all that to put me in a position to be able to do what God's called me to do.
Absolutely. And it's about the 1% getting better every day. If you can, 1% is a good number.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brick by brick. And just shows, like, even to be a personal testimony about this, like from recording in a duplex to recording in an RV to recording under a tree to recording in a office space to a church, and now we're here. So there's just been so many ebbs and flows of just a cycle of trying to figure it out, and just keep doing what you love. I feel so good, like when I'm doing the podcast, like I just feel like it's real, it's natural, it's fun, it's exciting.
Yeah.
And it's like I can't, even if I lose money doing the podcast, it's like it's always still a win, and it's gonna pay off. It has paid off. It's opened doors.
Right.
It's gotten people to really get to know me better and get closer to me, and just closer to God first and foremost. And it's open doors. And I feel like anything that you do that pursue your passion, like you were saying earlier, does open those doors.
Yeah. I think the encouragement, if I could offer some right now, is for those that are listening that are trying to figure out what your passion is, or trying to figure out what your next steps are, or feeling in a place of complacency. Because I think all of us, we go through different seasons in life.
We do.
And sometimes we're sitting in those moments of complacency, in those seasons where it's getting kind of tired and kind of frustrating. And God, what's next? Where am I going next? And it's super simple. And it's going back to what I said a second ago, trying to keep it simple. This is how I think.
Yeah.
Spend time with God and be willing to listen to what he's telling you, and then take it one day at a time. That passion that God's given you, begin to pursue it. Even if it's small. If you writing a book, if it's writing a book, write a paragraph. Start with a paragraph.
Absolutely.
Right? Like just start, and one day at a time. I love Craig Rochelle. I'm a big Craig Rochelle listener and supporter. I love Craig Rochelle. His leadership podcast is amazing. His sermons are amazing. And a couple of years ago, he started out the year kind of giving a like a New Year's message. And the New Year's message was, a lot of people do New Year's resolutions. We've got this long list of resolutions. I want to do this, and I'm going to do this year. I'm going to do this year, and this. And one of the things that really impacted me is kind of going back again to what we said a second ago, where we try to plan so much for ourselves. We try to do so much that it's overwhelming,
right?
And we can't focus on it all. We can't pay attention to it all. And so one of the things he did is, I think the title of the sermon was One Thing, and he said, take one thing this year and let that be your thing this year. Like that's what you focus on this year.
Yeah, just one.
If it's health, then this entire year your focus is on health.
I like that.
And the reason is because what you're doing is you're taking an entire year and you're building a habit around that one thing that you're working on.
I really like that.
Well, then next year, if that one thing is financial security, well, that whole year you're going to meet with a financial advisor, and you're going to implement a budget, and you're going to save, and you're going to do all this. You're building a habit around that one thing.
Yeah.
And then the next year something else. And what you're doing is you're stacking these habits that you've created that are focused habits. You're stacking them on top of one another. Well, then you're going to get 20 years down the road, you're going to have this list of 20 habits that you've built.
Yeah.
Right. Again, it's kind of pushing past the results aspect. I want the results of, I want the results today of being super healthy today, right?
Yeah.
But it can't happen in one day. And so if I just trust the process of focusing on that for this year is my health year. I'm going to focus on that. That's what I'm focused on. Then I think it will be able to look down the road and realize that the process was actually beautiful. I enjoy going to the gym and working out. I enjoy that time because I'm listening to podcasts sometimes. Sometimes I just need some music. Like I'm struggling to get in there that day, and I'm like, all right, God, I'm struggling. Give me some music. Let's find some.
You
good
listen
music.
to worship when you're in there, right?
I listen to Christian hype playlist. All right.
Do you really?
There's a Christian hype playlist on Spotify. Go check it out. Yeah.
What's on there, like Lecrae or
some of it? Yeah. Lecrae, Andy Mineo. There's a little techno, like Christian house music up there. Get it bouncing.
They got Christian house music.
Yeah,
I gotta check out this playlist.
Yeah, it's awesome. Sometimes you just need to get hyped, and you need a little bit. But I enjoy going to the gym, and that's part of the process.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy the part of the process because it's my quiet time. It allows me to kind of calm down. It allows me to decompress. It allows me to pray sometimes. It allows me to listen and bring in information. But that quiet time, that 45 minutes to an hour that I get every day, well, not every day, but 40 minutes to an hour that I get, it's good time. It's
always a good time. It's just the struggle of going, or like having the time to go. I went today after our breakfast, and I enjoyed it. I even did some swimming. No big deal.
All right, there you go.
Turner was supposed to come with me, but he bailed on that and the podcast. So we have to mention that real quick.
Yeah.
Shout out Turner. He'll be Turner Schwartz. He'll be with us shortly.
Yeah,
on another episode. We'll get him one day.
Yeah.
When you said the habits thing, it kind of reminds me of you said you're on chapter 20 in the Proverbs every morning you do it with your whole family, you said?
Yeah.
How has that been? Have you seen any fruit from that? Has that been a good way to start your day? Like, can you talk more about that?
Yeah. So I've done this for probably a couple of years now. To be honest with you, I haven't been extremely consistent with it. I'll do it for a season, and then I'll just, especially during the summer, because I'm not waking up, my normal time, kind of my routine's kicked out, right? Because kids are out of school. But when the kids are in school, I have my routine. I'm up at between 5:45 and 6 every day, and that's my time, like my quiet time. And I would read Proverbs during that time before when I got up, before the kids got up, and my wife, Catherine, she knew that we did that. Her idea, props to her. She was like, well, what if we did that as a family? We just read a proverb every morning. And so I go through and I've got like everything. It's different. Every time I go through the proverb, like each month, I highlighted a different color. So every time I go through Proverbs chapter 20, I had like 10 verses highlighted all different colors, because each time I read through it, something else is sticking out to me. And it's kind of something I'm focusing on. I've talked about the intentions thing twice today, right? Because it's something that I read this morning that resonated with me. And so I think reading a proverb every day, it's not going to get you something super spiritual. Proverb is very practical. It's very, hey, do this, don't do this.
Spiritual wisdom.
Yeah, people who do this are going to experience this. People who don't do this are going to experience this. And it's stuff that you can take and practically apply every single day. I'm a very practical person, and I like having stuff that I can apply. And so the beauty of Proverbs, reading Proverbs every day, is that I can go through and I can look and I can try to pull something out every day that I'm able to, every day that I'm kind of able to focus on a little bit that day.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to remember it, to be honest. I'm probably not going to remember it tomorrow or 10 days from now, but hopefully maybe something that I've received, something that I've pulled in, something that I've pulled in from Proverbs that day makes a little adjustment in my life and helps me, put me in a better position to minister to someone, one-on-one today. And so,
it's already had an influence on you. You mentioned it twice today, and it's you were excited to share it at a small group this morning. And like you said, when let's talk about the entertainment industry, because that's just what popped in my head. They're trying to flood your mind with all this stuff. The media trying to flood your mind with all this stuff. It's like, if you don't take that time to put in God's word into your body, into your eyes, into your heart, into your brain, you're gonna get led the opposite way, just because the lure of the eyes, the lure of what you're seeing, the stuff you're taking in. So if you can start with a proverb, and I actually spoke about this on like a few episodes ago, and made like a little clip and everything about like the value of reading like a Proverbs or Psalms a day, and what it does for you. It like kickstarts your day and gets you to choose the spirit over the flesh. Yeah. And so I commend you for that. That's awesome that y'all are already in, chapter 20.
Yeah.
You're going to run out soon. What are you going to do when y'all run out? You going to start over?
We'll start over. So every month we start, like we don't do it on the weekends, right? It's Monday through Friday, but every month we just start over. And so it's just, it's just repetition. Repetition is the essence of education. And so if I'm continually receiving this and it's continually, like you said, being put into my spirit, then it's going to come out, I think that I'm going to kind of tie three things together in this next statement that we've talked about over the past few minutes. But with my girls, 13, 10, and of course Charity at 2, she's up for the Proverbs sometimes. Sometimes she's not awake for them. But for the 13 and the 10-year-old,
we'll give her grace.
Yeah, we'll give her some grace. She's giving us some grace too by not being awake yet, because she's usually running around saying, "Where's my yogurt? Where's my yogurt?" while we're trying to read a proverb. But you talked about the entertainment industry and talking about culture. I see it especially with my girls. Sometimes we don't see it with ourselves, but the people that we love the most, we especially see it with them. The influence that is being put on them, the emphasis, the attention that's being placed on them by the entertainment industry and by social media and by their friends. If you're not careful, you'll just take it all in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what you take in comes out. Right.
Right.
And if you're taking it all in, all the negativity and the depression and things we're dealing with and, insecurities and all this, because we're taking all this stuff in because we're seeing it.
Yep.
In fact, the girls used to watch this TV show and they loved it. Well, I sat down and watched it one day with them, and I realized the dad is like the butt of every joke. Like,
and that's not good.
The dad's the bubbling idiot of the show. Yep. And they're all like the laugh track is like the loudest when the dad, like trips over the table and like everybody points at him and laughs.
And they do that for a reason.
Exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I saw, and actually Catherine kind of recognized it. She goes, the girls are kind of treating you like that. Like they treat you that. They don't see you in that level with that level of respect. And so, that we turned off that TV show, you know what I mean? And for me personally, even for I was a young grown man, I grew up without a TV. We didn't have a TV in the home growing up. And so I didn't get to watch a whole lot of movies. Like I was super behind on Star Wars and went and watched like all 6 episodes in one night. I definitely wouldn't recommend that. All right. But I had to get like caught up. Well, there was a season in my life where I was like, Blockbuster, RIP Blockbuster. But back in the day, like the manager at the Blockbuster over on Hewlin Street knew me because I was in there like every night getting a new movie.
That's hilarious.
Well, I look back on that now. I was like, man, what can you give me? Like, what did I miss out on? Give me what's next. What's cool? What movies did I miss? Well, I look back on that season now, and I was not very spiritual during that season.
Yeah, that was your party phase.
Right, yeah.
That was your college party phase.
Yeah, pretty much. I wasn't too crazy. Like I said, raised in church, raised to be a pastor. But yeah, that was my.
But that's crazy that Catherine recognized that, and I feel like that is like, I feel like the word discernment is I feel like it has a big umbrella to it. I feel like that is discernment that she made in that observation. It was a very she saw that this wasn't, benefiting to the family and cutting it out. And I think that's super wise. And a lot of parents, I feel like would be hesitant to make that decision or pull that or even paying attention to what their children are watching, and that's a big thing. You seeing all this propaganda and stuff and them pushing, kids in one direction to detach the family and, especially feminize the culture and stuff like that. So it's very, very inspiring and awesome to hear that she caught that and y'all made a change from that.
Yeah. I think as parents and as individuals, we have to be aware of it because, like during that season when I was watching all those movies, I wasn't very spiritually focused.
Right.
My mind wasn't in the right place. I wasn't, I wasn't leading I wasn't pastoring the way that God wanted me to, because I was spending so much time just bringing in all this junk.
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying movies are bad. I'm not saying don't watch movies. I love a good movie. We still sit down and watch movies.
Yeah, but you were like, you were consumed by it. That was your God.
Exactly.
That was your idol at the time.
Exactly right. And it goes back to, what am I bringing in? And so going back to Proverbs, one of the important things for us as a family, one of the things we're trying to accomplish, and I'm not saying we're perfect in any way, shape, or form, but one of the things we're trying to accomplish is we're trying to protect what's being brought in, and not just TV and movies, but music too. I mean, music, some of the songs out there are just outrageous. It's crazy. We're trying to protect what's coming in. And one of the ways that we've tried to accomplish that is by putting Proverbs at the beginning of the day. Like the first thing we take in the morning is God's word.
I love that.
And then one of the things that I do now with my 15 minutes a lot of times before the girls get up is it's again big, kind of popular in the church world is first 15. It's the first 15 minutes of my day. 5 minutes of praying, 5 minutes of worshiping, 5 minutes of reading.
Dutch Sheets has a ministry called that.
Oh, really?
Give them 15. Yeah. It's all about, your first 15 minutes of the day, getting started with God.
Yeah. And for me, personal finance side, we tithe, we give the first 10% of our income. And the reason is not because it's 10%, it's because it's first. It's the first, 10% that goes out
Mm.
because we put God first. And so we put God first in our finance, but a lot of times we don't put God first in our time.
Mm.
And it's not about a tithe of your time. It's about putting him first in your time. God, I want you first. I want your Holy Spirit in me before anything else fills me up, before anything else has the opportunity to be cursed by the world and culture.
Yeah.
God, I want you in me first.
I like that a lot.
And so, now for me, that first 15 is important. And then getting my girls into the Proverbs and trying to show them, life lessons and things that God's word says about how to live a blessed life.
Yeah, and in the short term, it can seem like it's not working, but there's long-term dividends that you're going to see. And we talk a lot about, you have a 13-year-old, I have a 9-year-old, and like my son's turning into a preteen as we know it.
Yeah.
And we're having to balance and juggle some things at 29 that nobody showed us and taught us. But at the end of the day, it's like once you put in those, you instill those values in them, and you work towards having them raised up in the word. There's long-term dividends that pay off for that, even if it feels rough and rocky in the beginning. So
yeah.
I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you. I receive it. I think we've always told the girls, in your world, in your be the influencer in your world.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
I love
necessarily
that.
be the influenced,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
If you can walk into a public school, into middle school, into your elementary school, to your soccer team or your cheer team or whatever it may be, if you can walk in and be a light for Jesus Christ and a light for others to experience love and joy that God has given you, that's what we want to help you accomplish. And so what we found is to be able to do that, you've got to be taking in the right stuff.
Yeah.
Because if you're not taking in the right stuff, you're not going to be able to walk into that position. You're going to be the influenced
Right.
as opposed to being the influencer, and having the word of God come into your heart and spending time in prayer and having that relationship, truly having a relationship, not just knowing about, but having a relationship with God, knowing God and spending that time with him. That kind of puts you in a position to be able to be that example, be that light, even in the darkness.
Yep. Even in the times that we're living in, man, it's more important than ever. So,
Yeah.
Dustin Watts, truly appreciate you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming on to the show. I would say, do you have anything you want people to go follow or check out? But you're not very big on social media.
Yeah.
So I truly appreciate you coming on, man. Hopefully
Absolutely.
I can connect you with some more people that are looking for some financial guidance and some ministry guidance going forward. And I'm just grateful for all you've done in my life, man. I truly appreciate you, bro.
Absolutely. Well, I'm honored to be here. And a plug to everybody listening, or a recommendation for everybody listening: subscribe and tell everybody else to subscribe. All right.
Yeah.
Start a group chat. Send a link.
Send a link
with the I Like Birds podcast to your buddies. That group chat that you have that just goes nuts all the time, right? And you look up and you've got like 50 messages from it.
Yep.
Well, let one of those 50 messages be the I Like Birds podcast, because it's worth it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Especially on the YouTube. We're trying to get the video game right. Taylor's helping us out with that. We have this awesome studio now once a month for the next 3 months at least. So we're excited for the future of the show, and we appreciate all you've done for it, Dustin. And
Absolutely.
Looking forward to more friendship and more good talks.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, brother. Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you, Taylor. We appreciate it. And make sure you pick up a copy of 21 Days in Africa if you haven't yet. It's on Amazon, and you can go to ilikebirdsministry.com if you ever want to check out some merch or find out more about us or support the ministry in any way. All right. Cheers.